So far, so good. I don't know if we're live or not, but let's see if we're live.
Fantastic. The internet is slow, either your end or mine, but never mind, we'll manage.
We're going to manage. It's great. Well, all I can say is I can hear you clearly now. There is no interference at the moment.
No.
So we'll take our chances.
Yep.
Pammy, how are you? I believe you had a plumber in your kitchen.
For some time. The kitchen is still quite flooded actually, but I'll deal with that in a moment. So it's a mini flood, which is very different from your maxi fires that you've been through, which have been just horrific, haven't they?
It's been challenging, but we're just having, it's extreme times, isn't it, Pammy? Yeah, would you agree? It's
totally. Yeah. And it's going to keep on coming because it's a whole shake-up of the old order, isn't it? And yes. You know, we are being shaken vigorously and rapidly out of our comfort zones. And it's interesting, I've just done my update filming, and I've literally in the last week or so heard of quite a few people who have totally changed their lives in every respect: marriage, job, home, country, everything. And they're just going to leave their country wherever they are and go to a completely new geography that they've never been to and start from zero. That radical. Wow. And that's quite unusual, I think, to have heard of several in the last week or so. So I think changes are going to happen very quickly and suddenly now for people, because as the frequency changes, that forces change to happen.
Yes, yes, I think spot on, yes. And I think what people are realizing now mostly is it's now or never.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like the window is sort of narrowing a little, but now as it narrows, you can say, right, I'm going here, or I'm going to do this. It's almost like you've been cogitating for a long time, and now it's time. You're cooked. You're ready to go.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a bit how you felt when you're trying to get back from New Zealand. It was a window of time you felt.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And how are things with you in the UK, Pam?
Well, what would you like to talk about? The weather? Because that's been one of the worst summers I can possibly imagine. I've just lived in wellies, really, apart from 2 weeks this year. I just seem to be permanently in kind of galoshes and rubberwear, really. So it's been very wet, very windy, and it's lucky we're hardy, and you know, we've got stiff upper lip and we just keep on trucking, really. So that's the weather. Let's say the general situation, I'd say, is unpredictable and unstable. So it's all good Uranus stuff. You know, can change very quickly, you know, because, you know, powers that be say, no, we're definitely not going to do that. And then whoopsie, oh, well, maybe we will. In fact, we'll do it right now. So there's lots of kind of fast changeability. So you've got to just observe all of this, I think, and not be knocked off center by it, because it'd be very, very easy indeed, if you're in fear, to just be smacked around by the changes in let's say the news that are coming at us. So you've just got to stay. That's why I haven't watched the news for more than 18 months. Gosh, that's helped me massively to raise my frequency. That single thing alone, I think my frequencies, you know, almost doubled just doing that, because you're not sort of inundated with one particular narrative, and you can choose what you want your life to be about from the inside out. No, not except, you know, this is what my life's going to be about. And that becomes a much more sort of empowered situation, because I think when you're receiving information that isn't fully positive, let's say, from the outside, it can just wear you down, really wear you down. I think that's, you know, very clear to see. How about you in Greece? Where do we begin?
Well, I think I would just iterate everything you're saying, that governments are changing their stance from 1 hour to the next, that not watching the general narrative and finding your own sources that resonate with you, that lift you, that make you feel, there's hope, there's light here, is really the way to go. Yes. What other tools do you use, Pammy, to keep your frequency high? People are asking us, you know, here, how much darker is it going to get before we kind of get to the other side? What's your feeling? And what
that's the weird thing. I mean, really, you know, I really walk my talk. So all the things I talk about in the videos, which are all for free, all super simple, super practical, you know, hug your child, hug your dog, hug your tree, do whatever brings you joy. Sing, dance, hum, tone, laugh, see an uplifting friend, anything, any of that, breath work, meditation, anything where you sense I'm more joyful than when I started a little while ago. You know, and constantly check it. What's my frequency? What's my frequency? Because people send me stuff all day long, and I'm sure they do to you as well, Bracha. And if it's, you know, quite negative, I think, well, wish I hadn't gone there. Not gonna, you know, because I know it'll take me down. And I think, no, I'm gonna listen to what's joyful, or sing to myself, or whatever. But the frequency is absolutely crucial at a time of, at the 3D level, darkness. But I think what's very interesting right now, and I'm sure you'd agree, Bracha, that it's the bright light which is showing the darkness. When you turn on a very bright light in a dark room, it shines into the dark corners. And we're seeing more dark corners than we've ever seen in our entire lifetime. And that will continue at the 3D level, because it's meant to continue, because this is the process of breaking down to break through. If we didn't see those dark corners, nothing would change. We'd stay in the past, you know, rumbling along day to day in our comfort zone, nothing would change. But it's forcing us to change. And that's absolutely what the astrology is saying, isn't it? That's where we're going. But because of all this new light and new energy coming in, we've got this real stretch of bandwidth. So, you know, yes, we can observe the dark corners, but that's not our only option. There are a whole load of other options over here that even wider and bigger and greater and more fabulous than we ever had before. So why don't we look at those rather than just the dark corners?
Yes.
So it's beautiful. You know, where do you put your focus? Where do you put your attention?
I love that. And somebody else has asked here, as light workers, which I think many of the people who your audience are, and many who are here, I'm sure, listening, may consider themselves light workers, the question is, should we go on marches and demonstrations, or should we meditate and send light and visualize the new earth? Which is the best?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, isn't it? And I'm sure, you know, I've certainly considered it myself, and I'm sure you have too, because if you look at the symbolism of Uranus and Eris, this is street fighting stuff. This is what is in the collective, and, you know, for many individuals are being triggered that way too. And of course, there's always, you know, the narrative that, well, you can't sit back and do nothing. You know, look at what's happening. You can't do nothing. How are you going to explain to your children, your grandchildren? You know, you sat back and did nothing. And that's a very compelling narrative. But the only thing, and I do think there's a place for that, because I think that this pushback is bigger and more and quicker and more surprising, perhaps, than was expected. Let's say that. And I think that has potentially made a difference. However, I think what's really important is to do it with positive conviction and vision, and never negative emotion. Because if you're doing it out of fear or anger or anxiety, you're feeding exactly what you don't want. You're feeding the old order. And some may even say, well, even going on the protests and demonstrations is feeding the old order, because you're matching, you know, resistance with resistance, as it were. So overall, I would say for me, and I've thought about this a huge amount, and I'd love to hear what you say about this, that working energetically is actually more powerful, particularly if you can do it in a group, where you're with a group of like-minded people, because, you know, we know that coming together in a group, it creates a kind of vortex of energy, of manifestation. And that becomes very powerful. And there's so much evidence about that. I mean, look at all Lynn McTaggart's work, Joe Dispenza's work, 10 tons of it out there, statistically significant, thousands and thousands of people doing this. But because it's invisible, meditating and sending intention is invisible, then people say, well, what are you doing? You're not doing anything. So you have to trust the frequency and the intention that you're putting out, that is having an effect. And we know in small personal ways it can have a very big effect. And the marches and demonstrations are very obvious. They're yang, they're tangible. We can see them on people's mobile phone footage. But my only concern is we have to do it with the right frequency. That if we're doing it out of negative emotion, we are feeding exactly the old system that we don't want and perpetuating it. So it's a tricky, I hope I'm being clear, because it's quite a, a fine thing. Do you get me?
Totally. I think pearls of wisdom. Really, I mean, it's just, you really put it so succinctly and so well that by raising the energy, and especially in a group, which is why I know that your audience, and certainly when we are live here, we've got an amazing live audience of people who are on this page, who really want to raise the frequency.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what we can accomplish so easily and so quickly without the fight, without the tear gas, without the demonstrations, and yet, I think both are needed right now. As you said, one is very yang and one is very yin energy. Yeah.
And
sorry, please.
It's interesting. You will be very, very, very familiar with this, Bracha, because we really had some adventures down in France. But when I wanted to buy a house in France, and I was obsessed by it because I'd wanted to do it my entire life, and an opportunity came through a small inheritance from my mother, and I was just obsessed. I had French pictures all over the kitchen, blue, yellow, shutters, berets, onions, bicycles. Just, I kind of vamped up my French a lot. I was just obsessed in the way that you would be with a new partner or your new puppy, or I was just obsessed about it, and I wouldn't let it go. And I imagined what life would be down there, and I'd be walking the mountains and integrating with local village life and blah, 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 all of that. And very fast indeed, I happened to buy the Sunday Times, which I never buy a newspaper. I've got no time. And then why I looked at the ads section, I don't even know, but there was an ad in there, 1 plot left for a development in the Black Mountains in France. And I called up the sales agent on a Sunday, and she said, if you want it, you've got to come down tomorrow. It's the only one left, and we've got a lot of interest. So I literally flew down the next day and stood in a field and said, this is home, I've got to have it. And the sales guy must have thought, oh, this woman's a pushover. And the subsequent story that came from that. But it was a very clear act of manifestation, because I was so excited, so sure it was going to happen. Like when you're pregnant, the baby's going to, it's not going to go backwards. The baby is going to come. You put a light switch on, the light is going to go on. So there's a sense of expectancy, excitement, and conviction that this is going to happen. So you don't know the how, you have no idea of the how, but you are passionate and absolutely uni-focused on that thing.
Yes.
And if you do it in a group, it's even stronger.
Amazing. And I think what we're talking about here is maybe this energy of Saturn square Uranus, of this knowing when to let go and to say, right, this is over, because your French adventure was, it turned out to be a difficult one at the end. Yes, at the very end. So when am I pushing too much, and when do I need to release and surrender to what is actually happening? And I think that's going to be a fine line as we move forward here, isn't it? Because, it's right. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, for me, it's setting a clear intention.
Yes.
Being absolutely focused on it in joyful expectancy and excitement. And letting nothing get in your way. But taking steps towards that destination. You know, for instance, a good analogy, and gosh, what's that wonderful chap? I can't remember his name. He runs lots of workshops all over the world. But anyway, it's his analogy. Wish I could credit him. But anyway, he said, it's like setting your GPS. You get in your car and you set the GPS for your destination. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get there, because that does it for you. You've set your intention, you've set your destination on the GPS, but you have to start the car. You have to put it in gear. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. And it was a brilliant analogy, because I think we have to take those little action steps to say to the universe, I'm absolutely definite about this. I'm not mucking about. You know, this is really going to happen. And
that's wonderful.
It's a good. Yes. It is not mine, but it's a very good analogy.
It's beautiful. Well remembered. So, what I would be saying to people who are listening to us here, right? I mean, what is it you're going for? What is it you want? I mean, I think what we're all wanting, or most of us, is a new earth, a new humanity to be birthed that is conscious, that is kind to one another, that is able to really get away from killing one another and destroying one another and destroying our planet. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I mean, that's where we're headed if we don't actually raise the frequency and the consciousness here. So I think most of us have a clear intent, and we don't know how at this point. A lot of people ask me, well, how? What am I supposed to be doing? Yeah. And maybe you don't know just yet. And maybe that has to unfold. What's your feeling on that?
It's interesting, actually, because I've literally, and that's why my hair looks slightly better today, I've just filmed my update this afternoon, and I was talking about exactly that, because I was saying, even if you don't know the form or the structure or the circumstances of what it's going to be, just get the feelings. Do you want to feel freer? You know, imagine you're just flying over mountains. Do you want to feel loving connection? Send out love to every being, every dog, horse, human that you know. So live in the frequency of what you want to experience. And so those feelings are all part of new, you know, abundance. When you're in nature, milk it. Wow, look at those colors, look at those flowers, look at the leaves, you know, look at the sky. You know, occasionally it is blue here. So you milk it, milk it, milk it to create the feeling that you want to experience as a frequency match coming towards you. And if you can, if it's possible for you to get into groups of like-minded people, that will help immensely, because it isn't just lonely old you, there are a whole bunch of you on the same page working for the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. Pammy, that's just wonderful. Somebody else has asked, how can we treat one another more respectfully? Yeah, we're noticing that there's a lot of abusive kinds of behavior out there. What's your feeling on that?
And I don't know if this has happened to you, Bracha. It's certainly happened to me recently, very recently. It was a local situation where a neighbor, an elderly neighbor I help out a great deal, as you know, really became very aggressive with me. And I could feel my Mars in Aries kind of inflate. So, but I thought if I use that Mars in Aries, I'm just perpetuating the polarity, perpetuating the duality, the division. I'm just coming straight down to that level. So I went off to walk her dog with kind of steam coming out of my ears, but I thought it through and thought, I've got to give compassion. I've got to give love and compassion, because otherwise it's battle. You know, we're back in this, because I did feel fairly sparky, to be honest, but, you know, we've got to get beyond that with love and compassion to draw in the unity consciousness that we all want. At the end of the day, we're heading for unity consciousness. However unlikely it seems right now with all this division and polarity, ultimately, we've got to find a way to get that through compassion and love and understanding. And so to me, that was my very personal experience. And I don't know if you've run into this kind of thing too. It's more widespread.
I just think that's really beautifully put. And what I love is that you didn't say, I haven't got those emotions. To use your words, you said, well, I felt pretty sparky, which means if you translate it, it means I was very, very angry, right? And you had the emotion, yeah? You didn't pretend nice. You had it, but then you chose not to react with that same aggressive frequency that had come at you, that you'd been infected with.
Yeah, lovely observation, actually. It's a very nice way to look at it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
So that, no, well, thank you. You spark things here beautifully, Pammy. So I think that that's something to remember in this. You may have emotions. Yeah, I was sharing last night in my live stream that my landlord had actually offered to pay for the new door. I didn't share that. I'm giving you the details now. And many times he said, no, this is on me. I'm paying for it because it's his house and I can't take the front door with me if I'm leaving. Yeah. But then the job got done and then he wanted half of the money for the door. And it was like, it was a done deal. It was like he'd forgotten everything he'd said. So, I mean, I did feel angry, but I also felt really upset, you know, a sense of betrayal of somebody I trusted. And so I went through raw 24 hours or so of churning, and I allowed that to be, but I did not come back with negative emotion at him until I was able to get to a nice, calm place and see the bigger picture and let it go.
Yeah, that's very good, because actually what that would have done is just set up friction with the landlord, which is absolutely the last thing. You know, you've got to think about the further pieces in the chess game, haven't you? And what are the ramifications if you kind of get very angry? Where does that lead to? And it gets bigger. You're fueling an angry situation with more anger, and that isn't helping you or him or, you know, anybody. So I think we've got to be terribly discriminating and cognizant and forgiving and compassionate. I think we've got to be, not to inflame the divisions even more than they currently are. I think we've got to try and soothe them rather than inflame them, even if they hit you personally, which has happened to you and me.
Both of us. And I'm sure to many people who are listening, these turbulences, because people's emotions are being triggered by fear, or, you know, there's all sorts of hot emotions. And I think that's in many ways we're having that reflected in Mother Earth of too much water, too much fire, stinking air, pollution. Yeah, it's everything is being exaggerated. So if we can bring down that exaggeration and find the sort of the middle way that the Buddhists talk of, we might find that Gaia also reflects that, begins to reflect that.
Yeah, beautiful, because it's just, it's a reflection, it's a feedback loop, isn't it? It's a reflection of our collective consciousness. It's a constant feedback loop. So, you know, the Earth is experiencing Uranus in Taurus, and we're experiencing Uranus in Taurus. We're all part of the same cosmos. We can't get away from it. So, yeah, it beautifully puts it. We can kind of calm down. Some of these extremes in the Earth may calm down too. I think that's a great observation. Yeah.
Thank you, Pammy. And I think what we're wanting to do is to create space. Yes, this sense of space between what's coming at you and how you're reacting to what's happening.
Yeah.
So that you can think straight, so that you can think creatively, rather than in the old way of just, you know, getting your baton out and hitting somebody on the head.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And what's always helpful, I think, and I learned this in Buddhist teaching some years ago, if something unhelpful comes at you, something aggressive or negative or whatever, just always say to yourself, I can choose my response. Take a breath, be mindful, and choose your response. You know, they may have had a hideous day, you know, their dog might have just died, you know, their partner's sick. You just don't know the full picture of that person. So always, if it's woof coming at you, I will take a breath, be mindful, and try and be very kindly and compassionate in my reply. Because otherwise, as I said, it's just going to ignite. It's just going to inflame.
And that's what we've got to watch out with this square energy going on. This, and it's going on for quite some time. Yeah, absolutely.
It is. And even next year, as you know, Bracha, we've still got the square between Saturn and Uranus. It's not exact to the degree in the minute, but it's exact to the degree in October 22.
It's enough.
So
that's enough.
Still got it rumbling, slightly looser for some of the year, not quite as intense and vice-like, but it's still there. It's still rumbling on.
Yeah. The frequency is there for us to heal it.
Yeah. Lovely.
That's what we've come to do this time. And I'd love your feedback, since you are a Pisces, about your thoughts about next year's Jupiter and Neptune conjunction.
Well, it's crack on my sun, so I'm ecstatic. Crack on my sun, so who knows? I'll have a bigger flood in the house, because that's the. I mean, that's the only sort of tricky side with Jupiter and Neptune, because people will know Pisces is a mutable water sign, so it's got no boundaries, it's unlimited. Neptune is in its own sign of rulership, so that makes it stronger. Jupiter expands whatever it touches, so Jupiter comes along and said, no, let's have really, really, really big water. It's interesting, all those big floods in Europe happened, I believe, when Jupiter was in Pisces.
Really?
Yes, not conjunct Neptune, but when it moved into Pisces soon after that, we had those devastating floods in Europe, particularly Germany. I think Netherlands really bad. So Jupiter is moving back to Pisces on the 29th of December, as you know, and into the first half of next year. But it comes to that conjunction with Neptune in April, at 22, 23 of Pisces. I mean, this is mystical. This is really mystical. So if it's hitting any of your personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, hitting your ascendant, this can be, a step into mysticism. Anyway, I'm hoping that's at its best. It's an expansion of oneness. It's a bigger understanding of oneness, interconnectedness with all beings, unconditional love, our capacity to heal others, all being part of the, all drops being part of the same ocean. It will give us a greater understanding of that. And I think for everybody, there'll be an upping in our intuition and our psychic sensitivity.
Yes. And also this ability to work and have this joint vision.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, you put it beautifully, but what we were talking about a little earlier, that gives it like a turbocharge.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, this is the future vision, isn't it? Big dreams, big horizons, future vision. Fabulous. It's very idealistic.
Yes.
But entirely possible.
Yes, I mean, you're already this amazing spiritual leader, but I have a feeling when it hits the sun next year, I really think this is when you are, going to hit even more of the big time here.
Bless you, my best friend, not just having floods.
No. Although I do think
confidence.
And your chances are there will be.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Bless you.
Oh, that's lovely, Pammy.
But so what do you feel it's very positive as well? I think we've got to watch the flood issue, but do you feel?
I think it's the flooding and the water there's big warnings around that. So I would just say to anybody who has got an intuitive feeling that not sure that where I live feels comfortable, maybe you're in a flood zone, maybe you're in maybe this, so you may want to think about possibly moving, or you start doing some serious praying and visualizing,
or climbing.
But just know that. And climbing, yes. And getting your gumboots and your wellies out and your boat.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, actually. I think also what's going to be interesting to watch, with our magic ephemeris here that we love, is on the let me see, that new moon on the 2nd of March next year.
Yes.
Jupiter is conjunct the moon, sun and moon at 12 of Pisces. Jupiter's conjunct the sun and moon at 12 of Pisces.
Wow.
Another possibility. It's getting close to the, no, it's a little way off the conjunction at that point, because Jupiter's 13
yes.
and
yes.
it's 10 degrees away from Neptune, but nevertheless, that's beautifully expansive, but you know, there could be a slight thing about flooding 2nd of March.
Yes. So if you do, I mean, while you can still get insurance, up your insurance. I really mean that, because now, just to let you know, I tried to get insurance here in Greece this last couple of weeks, and nobody would insure me because of the fires down the road. So once it's here, well, you can't get insurance. So just a little heads up here.
That's
for
brilliant
we can
advice.
Still get things.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Actually, I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you, Pammy. She's so generous, isn't she? You're such a beautiful person. Lovely friend, beautiful person, lots of fun, as you can see.
Yeah, you do.
So somebody was asking here, Pammy, you say you've not watched the news for 18 months or so. Where do you get your information from?
Wow, I'd be interested in hear where you're getting yours from as well. I mean, people send stuff all day long, and I'm sure they do to you too. And it's really coming through on a lot of alternative channels as well. Alternative social media, Telegram is very popular. Another one called Gab, capitals G-A-B, MeWe is M-E-W-E, and another one. So a lot of social media platforms, and I'm sure more will be spawned quite soon, but also alternative video channels such as Rumble and BitChute. They often have some very, very interesting content that is not possible on the more mainstream channels. So if you really want alternative views from which you then make your own judgments, not that you should fully accept any narrative from any person ever, we are developing a much better intuition, like a tuning fork of, is that really true? Is that really, whoever's saying it, how much I love them and respect them, is it really true? Because we're developing this natural intuition to a much, much higher level. And that's the point, I think, of all this smoke and mirrors almost.
Beautiful. Oh, Pammy, that was really, how insightful. Yeah. Well, that's the purpose of it. Yeah, but I love that you've got a reason for it. Yeah, that makes this valuable. We can see this now as being a valuable opportunity to develop a skill that we've been a little bit lazy with, and now we can up it and up the ante and up that intuition and up the messages that you're getting, and trust the messages.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the smoke and mirrors are actually acting as a catalyst for our own internal development. Isn't that interesting?
Beautifully put. Yes. Oh, that really is. These are catalyzers. Yes. Catalyzers for us to take care of our Earth, our planet, our animals, Uranus in Taurus. We've got quite a few more years of this, haven't we, Pammy? So
2026, absolutely, a lot to come.
How can we prepare? Is there anything else that you are doing or that you would suggest that we can do at this stage?
Yes, and I'm sure many people are doing this, and I'm sure you're doing it too, Bracha. I think everything is going to be local. It's going to be grassroots up, not top down. All the big top-down structures, corporations, institutions are going to be crumbling in the coming months and years. That's very clear in the astrology. So Aquarius energy is grassroots up. So make friends with your neighbors, even the tricky ones. Make friends with your neighbors. Make friends with your local farmers. Get together in a group, in a community. Find groups you can join where people are going to be of like mind, whether it's a sort of, gardening, a biodynamic gardening group, that kind of thing, or a sustainability group where the people are going to be on a similar wavelength to you. So meet up with them, make sure it's all local so you can easily keep in contact with each other, and start to form a plan. Can you grow different vegetables in your garden so you can swap? Somebody grows all the tomatoes, somebody else grows all the courgettes because that works for them. And then you share. And you really strengthen the bonds in your local community as well, which would be wonderful. And it's really that simple. And yes, we can join together online internationally with people. That's wonderful too. But if things really get tough and the internet goes down for a little while, may only be a short time, maybe a longer time, you know, you've got literally, you can knock on people's doors very close to you. You can walk or cycle to them.
Yes. And also, if you know somebody who's on their own, make a contact with them, make a connection, step out. You know, you want to really do something for the earth. Is there an old lady who lives on her own? Yeah, I know many people are already doing that, but let's consciously begin to create the networks so that there's no more loneliness. There's no more, you know, I spoke about the Froome Community Compassionate Project, where there are all these communities. People have created meaning to their lives because they feel like they're doing and contributing and helping others.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think you bought me a book for that.
Yes.
That came through recently that I've yet to start. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In fact, around Froome, which is a wonderful area for energy, earth energy.
Oh, yes.
I believe there's a website. I believe it's called Bright Sky, brightsky.org, brightsky.net, something like that. And people who are like you and I, Bracha, you know, astrologers, healers, therapists, sound healers, all of that can join the website and offer their services. And that's all I know. It probably has a lot more to it than that because it's all within the Froome geography. But that is wonderful. And also Froome, as you know, Bracha, it's one of those special towns. What do they call them? They've got a special name, protector town or something like that, which means that it's the people who are governing the town, the rules of the town.
Yes.
They've got a special name. There are only about 6 of them in the UK, but they've got a special name, meaning it's the people in a people's council. That this is Aquarius energy.
Yes. Oh, getting the shivers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ooh. This is how it's going to be a horizontal structure. We are going to be forming people's assemblies and we self-govern.
Beautiful. I mean, Pammy, that's what we are moving towards.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. Yeah. Creative, compassionate communities.
Beautiful. And you know, that little old lady who lives on her own, you have no idea of her skills and talents. She might be able to make jam or stew or soup, or you know, you just write her off as an old lady. But actually she has wartime talent. She's lived through World War II and she knows how to ration and make do and still have great meal. You know, so everybody has value in the community.
Yes. Everybody counts. Yeah, I love that. So there's people are asking a little bit here about the coming food shortages, the disruptions to food, and because of course the Uranus in Taurus, the square, all this energy that we've been talking about. What's your feeling about that, Pammy? And is there anything we can do about it?
Yeah, well, we've got it, haven't we? In fact, you know, I've just been saying that in my update video, which I'll hopefully put out tomorrow, that you know, whether it's as a result of the extreme weather, droughts, fires, floods, whatever it is, whether it's, you know, I was saying in the video, for instance, in the UK, we've got a shortage of 100,000 lorry drivers. So the food is in the lorries, but there aren't enough drivers to drive them to the supermarkets. And because of our particular track and trace system in the UK, if you're in close proximity to somebody who's tested positive for COVID, your mobile phone will ping and you have to quarantine for, I think it's between 10 and 14 days, which means that, you know, supermarkets are short-staffed from, you know, in terms of the shelf stackers. So the food may get to the supermarket, but there aren't enough people to put it on the shelf. So it's certainly, I haven't been to a supermarket for over 18 months. I just never go. I'm further and further back from mainstream society. But I have friends who go to supermarkets and they say that the shelves have been very empty at times, you know, particularly fresh food. It's the perishable fresh food. So, you know, all I would say is plan for that, just like you plan for winter. So whether you can put stuff in the freezer, particularly, you know, fruit and vegetables, fresh food that you might be short of, or you know, have canned food, have dried food, get canned sardines or nut butter or tahini or, you know, dried pulses, lentils, chickpeas. There are lots of things you can do that if you run into that, you know, it's not going to be forever, but those interruptions in the food supply chain, then you've got something. It's not a disaster.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure you're doing that as well, Bracha, at your end. And, you know, if you knew there was a tough winter coming and you're going to be snowed up as I was as a child for a couple of months, we just planned for it.
That's it. That's it. So I love that, Pammy. Yeah, don't panic. Just plan and say, you know, it might be a tough winter, and therefore we'll plan for it. I think that's beautifully put. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's no panic. Then there's no panic.
Exactly. And your Taurus has everything to do with our survival needs, our physical needs. Yeah. So I would suggest, you know, getting anything repaired, your kitchen, your plumbing, sorry, Pammy, but, you know, doing whatever important repairs are needed, I've got to replace the tires on my car, you know, whatever you can do to just be a little bit ahead of the game so that you're not taken off guard. Because things just may be slow for a while or a little difficult for a while. Yeah.
I think that is extremely wise because, you know, the incident I've had to show with the plumber, apparently the parts have to come from America and they could take another couple of months. And you know, this is happening a lot with all kinds of various supplies because of all of it, short staffing, the virus, you know, the whole scenario. So yes, do it now. Make the changes now for anything that needs repairing, changing, anything. Just to, as you say, get ahead. I think that's a very wise observation.
That's great. What I'm loving what we're doing today, Pammy, is we're covering all the elements, because the earth signs need to have something very practical to do, right? So we're telling the earth sign, you know what I mean? Like, right, do this, prepare, because it's nice. They like to go out and repair things, you know, and do things and that kind of thing. And the air signs, of course, like to talk about it and come up with plans and ideas.
The fire signs like to be inspired and have a vision.
So we hope we're giving you inspiration and a good laugh at the beginning. And then the water signs need to, you know, tune in and feel as though they're getting, you know, the intuitive and the messages and the mystical and the invisible. And so I think we're hopefully covering everybody's needs here.
Another thing I'd say, Bracha, just going back to what we were talking about earlier, the other thing I think is helpful in manifesting is, you know, we talked about the feelings of, you know, freedom or loving connection, whatever it is. But if you have any hint of maybe a piece of land that a group of you want to buy, something like that, lock onto it. Just like a docking, you know, a rocket docking, lock onto it and say to the universe, this or something better.
Love it.
Something better. And so your vision can take more form because that place you found or that piece of land that you formed has many of the elements that you're looking for. And it may be that place or something even more miraculous. And so I think that can be quite helpful as you move forwards in your vision.
Oh, I love that, Pammy. Yeah, and I just love that something or something better, because there's a tendency to be devastated if something doesn't happen, that you'd put your eggs in that basket and said, oh, this is perfect. And then for whatever reason, it just doesn't go. Then you flow along and say, right, next. We'll fit more of our needs. Yes. So just keep, the way I would see it is, see things as blips rather than major obstacles. Just make it a blip.
Absolutely. And maybe a slight tacking in direction, perhaps. Maybe it's sign from the universe, just another 2% in this direction.
I love that, because gradually now we're coming to the mutable signs. We're getting through Leo, so we won't have so much of the fixed energy. And we're moving now into the Virgo energy, and what's your feeling as we move into this more of a mutable field now? What's
I think it's very much about, we need to be adaptable and flexible. We need not to be rigid. And really that's the message also of Uranus in Taurus, isn't it? Because Taurus wants to keep things as they are, keep it rock steady, don't rock the boat, no new ideas, nothing, you know, that's a very solid fixed earth sign. Whereas the mutable energy is saying, no, you've got to be light on your feet. You know, you've got to be dexterous, you've got to diversify, you've got to have, you know, maybe different skills to your talents or whatever. I think it's also flexibility and adaptability, and I think it's also, particularly with this Virgo energy, about discernment and discrimination with all the smoke and mirrors, as I mentioned earlier, you know, sharpening, because both Virgo and Pisces, both mutable signs, really are about sharpening that intuition. And so we do it ourselves.
Beautiful.
Go to anybody to say, what do you think, you know, tell me the future, you know, you have to come to us to tell the future, you know, you will be the lightning rod to tell yourself.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, because we've had a tendency to go outside again. This is always this needing to go outside.
Yeah.
And now to feel good about, all right, so we're locked down for another little while. You know, I mean, we're locked down with fires in Greece. Yeah, it's not COVID, it's fires. But, you know, whatever else it might be, that we're fine. We're going to get through. I think that's the message. We're going to get through.
Yeah.
We're going to make it.
And actually, and
humanity can make.
Sorry, there's a slight delay there, Bracha, but you've shown amazing resilience, I think, you know, well, many months, but particularly, you know, with the fires, etc., and, you know, so much has happened for you. But I think the more people that join in the energy, the vision of New Earth, even in this vague way of in abundance, loving animals, like, you know, loving everybody, blah, 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 you know, the more people that feed that energy, the faster it's going to come. We're just going to magnetize it to it.
And it can happen really quickly. That's the advantage with Uranus in Taurus. The Uranian energy can suddenly have a whole village suddenly created, you know, tiny houses, a piece of land, different people coming together, creative solutions with a different thinking frequency outside of the same old system that is already crumbled, quite honestly.
It has.
This is already gone.
Shadow. Yeah, that's at higher levels. That's absolutely true. And of course, Uranus is higher mind as well, isn't it? Uranus Aquarius, higher mind as well. And Virgo brings in practical solutions.
Exactly. And I love your thing around discernment, because that's going to be key, not to get sucked into a stream of something that's dodgy.
Yep.
You know, you get a feeling, does this feel really right for me? Does it? Yeah, does it feel right? Or this feels a little bit off to me.
Yeah.
Let me find out some more. What information do I need? What do I need to learn from this? What's it trying to show me? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And you know, for some people, they use kinesiology, they use muscle testing. Some people use the sway test to say, you know, is this good for me? Is this not? I use the pendulum a lot. I use the pendulum, and I've got this really,
you're a wonderful dowser.
Calibrated dowsing chart. And I use that a lot. And the more I use it, the sharper it seems to be. So that's merely an extension of my intuition. So I use that quite a lot, really, to, you know, to resolve situations or test out, is it true, is it not? Because I've kind of got to that place already within myself, but then the pendulum can often confirm it. So, you know, you can just use these slightly exterior tools, but you're still using your own intuition, not somebody telling you. You know, you're judging it yourself.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful, Pammy. Wow. It's so good just to be with you. Well, you know, we like our little natters, don't we? So really, thank you so much for the valuable information you've shared. Is there anything you'd like to add that you want to share? Lucy, Lucy, please, would you post the links You can pin them as well, but also post them in the chat for Pammy's books, which are amazing. They are bestsellers. She's a master astrologer. Also for her teaching videos, Lucy will post all of that. So Pammy, thank you for the amazing contribution that you're making.
Oh, well, you too. I mean, you've got a massive following. So what would you like to add, Bracha, to what we've talked about? I mean, I think we're entering some fairly colourful months. What would you like to add?
I love your turn of phrase. That's great. It's going to be colourful. Yeah. I like that. And just to know that it's not going to be boring.
That's absolutely true, and it's going to be it's going to be fast, and you may find that the very fast changes in your own life that you might have kind of semi thought of, but you might not have been expecting at all, because the shift from the old to the new is happening quickly.
Yes.
And go with it. Go to the new.
Yes, sorry, there's a delay. Yes. Keep going to the new, and know that there are many people who want this unified field, who want what you want. Yeah. And you're not alone. And as these are awakening times, filled with opportunity. And I'm just so grateful to have you, Pammy, in my life. And just so grateful for everything that you're doing. Really, thank you for being here. And I think we're going to do a once a month transmission, aren't we?
Yeah, and hope it starts a little better than this one. But no, yeah, thank you, Bracha. You've got a massive following, and you're just absolutely pumping it out and doing wonderful things. So we're all playing our part in this and a piece of the puzzle. But you're a wonderful friend, and we have had some adventures and a lot of laughter together. So
we have, and we hope that we're spreading that here. And just thank you for your time today. Thank you, Lucy, and the team in the mods who've dealt with the chat that's got faster and faster. So I haven't been able to follow a lot of the questions, but maybe in our next live stream next month, we'll be able to cover a few more things.
Yeah, for sure.
Pammy, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, it's been an absolute joy, as always, Bracha. I hope the fires subside and you're safe and dry. And thank you to Lucy too. Wizard Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you, Pammy. Love you loads.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.